About 17 years ago, I did my first 1,000-pound plus squat. And nowadays, I've moved on to a lot of other things, such as running and sprinting. I'm gonna teach you guys in this video how I've been able to hold it together and how I've been able to do it. This is like, you know, you try to share a story or share the details the best you can, and it can be hard because I don't know all the details to share with you. All I know is what my own body feels like, and all I can tell you is how I've responded to things. So I'm not saying that by you following the exact same protocols that I've done, that you're gonna end up with the same results. I would say, those of you that have seen Bigger, Stronger, Faster, you see that I come from a stock of people that are fairly resilient and fairly robust. My brother Chris is, you know, like 5'5" or so. He's a little over 200 pounds. He's stocky. He's always been very strong. His nickname is the Boar. My oldest brother, Mike, he passed away probably around 20 years ago, almost now. He was around my size, around my height. He was actually a little heavier. He was like 250. I'm like 220. And he was resilient as they come. And he was a football player, a professional wrestler, and his nickname was Mad Dog. So I do come from a good stock. I'm not going to deny the genetic factors that play into it. I'm also not going to deny performance-enhancing drugs. There's no reason to. They're great. I have the quote of probably the century of saying, I love steroids. I'll be on and off them the rest of my life. And that's in my brother's film, Bigger, Stronger, Faster. It's not so much that I love steroids, but I do love some of the results that they can get you. And so I'm not going to pretend that testosterone and some of the other things that I've utilized over the years hasn't played into my physique, hasn't played into my strength. I mean, it's played into all these things. Like, let's just not even be silly about it, and let's not try to perpetuate something that's not true. So those are big factors in there. But what are the tangible things that you guys can do? What are the take-homes for you, since you may not have the same genetics and you might not want to use performance-enhancing drugs? So I think this is important. During my powerlifting career, after every competition that I did, I always started over. Started over. Every single time, good, bad, or otherwise, I started over. All the way to the point where when I would compete weighing, let's say, 300 pounds. After the contest was over, I'd strip everything down. I'd get rid of a lot of the heavy lifting. I would start to drag the sled more. I would start to do more like lat pull downs and trap work and things that I thought were going to help the shoulder girdle stay intact better. Things that I thought maybe I would do more pec flies and stuff. Things that I felt were going to keep the pecs more intact when I went for some of those big bench presses, benching eventually 854 pounds, squatting 1,080 and deadlifting 766. After every time I hit one of those big numbers, I'd start it over almost as if it never happened in the first place. I just would start from almost ground zero. Obviously, I wouldn't start with like just the bar and stuff like that. I wouldn't go that far back, but I would start over and I would start to work on a new foundation, so that every time I had a newer or bigger or stronger foundation, I could build more stuff up on top of it. And this was explained to me by somebody that I can't look up to any higher and can't put in any higher regard than the great Eddie Cohn. Greatest lifter of all time. There's no reason to talk about anybody else. Deadlifted 900 at 220. Those of you who don't know, just look him up. It's absurd. He beat Bill Kazmaier. Bill Kazmaier was 330 pounds or 340, whatever. It was just like unbelievable numbers from Ed Cohn. He did the 901 deadlift sumo, but he also pulled 887, I think, conventional. Just disgusting numbers, just so strong. And Ed explained to me, he's like, Ed explained to me, it wasn't about the sport. It wasn't about the career in powerlifting. It was about what is this going to look like afterwards. because he ran into some issues. He ended up blowing out a knee at a competition. He ended up having some hip issues later on in his career. And now I think he's doing really well, which is a testament to his training, but he kind of had to learn the hard way. And so he shared with me and a lot of other people, the next generation, shared with me some of the things you can do to kind of stay out of harm's way. So rebuilding after every competition. Let me explain what that means a little bit more in detail. So as far as training goes, I did mention I might remove a lot of the barbell exercises. It might be dumbbells, machines. There might be more decompression work or just work that's not so compressive, such as squats and deadlifts. I might, instead of doing a squat, I may have moved into doing like walking lunges. I may have moved into dragging the sled forward and backwards and getting the quads and the hamstrings. There's all kinds of different options. And for some of you that are younger and some of you that are more athletic than I was when I was in those phases, I would say, work on your athleticism in those down times when you're out of season, quote unquote. There is no season for powerlifting, but when you're out of season, that's where you might do some jumps and some light sprints and some various things, but it's going to take a while for you to even be able to do them at all. So start very, very slow. Start low and slow. In terms of nutrition, so you would think as a powerlifter, you just eat any and everything in sight. And I did to a certain extent. I did it here and there, and it didn't work the way I wanted it to, so I had to get a better diet. And so from the time I was probably 14 or so, I learned about ketogenic style diets. I also learned about bodybuilding style diets. And so I started to kind of mix some of that together when I was powerlifting. When I was done with a competition, I would go right into a ketogenic diet, and I'd lose all the bloat and all the fluff and all that stuff. I'd go low carb for maybe like a month, maybe 2 months. And then I'd start to shift over into a little bit more of a bodybuilding style of diet, which would be laughable to a real bodybuilder because they'd be like, you're just basically in a bulk. It definitely wasn't cutting, but I would start to add the carbohydrates back in, and I'd start to pull the fats back down, because if carbohydrates and fats are together at the same time, as you guys learned here at the Single Digit Body Fat Series, or on the Single Digit Body Fat Series, you guys learned that carbs and fats together are a real recipe for getting very, 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 very plump and very fat. So those were some of the things I did from a diet perspective. I would go from 300 pounds right down to like 270 in maybe a month and a half or so. Just because one thing that's misunderstood about powerlifting is that you want bloat. I used to say the gluten is free. And I started eating these things that I called bench bagels. And bench bagels were just were bagels with salt on them. And those salted bagels, I would have, 2 or 3 of them before a training session. And when I competed, after my squat session, after I was done with my squats, I would load up on those bench bagels. Not that they were specific to bench pressing, but bench pressing was a time where you could be really bloated and really stuffed. So for the squat, I couldn't really be as stuffed and bloated. It just didn't feel right. But for the bench, I could be disgusting. And so I would drink a ton of water. I would eat a ton of carbohydrates, maybe eat some like Fritos or something really salty. I'd hammer some of those bench bagels. Those bench bagels with all that gluten and the salt and everything, it would just blow me up. Inflammation overload. And I really felt that was helpful. And it gave me like high blood pressure, which I think there's some sort of weird correlation with high blood pressure, or just high pressure period, and lifting heavy ass weights. And so that worked that way for me, and it ended up working well during the competitions. I'm probably lucky that I didn't have a heart attack or something. But competition was over, I would just do the flip side of that. I would just get rid of all that stuff. I remember starting to look at like a paleo diet and stuff like that, kind of in the middle of my powerlifting career. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do like a little bit of a dirtier version of a paleo diet. As the competition gets closer, then I'll just drop it out and I'll just eat like a fat bastard a little bit as the competition gets closer, because it was important for me to have that body weight on me. Not everybody's the same. Not everyone can be Ed Cohn and lift the weights that he lifted at 198 and 220 and 242. For me, I needed to be heavy. I just wasn't, I wasn't strong enough, or strong enough for what I was, strong enough for the goals that I had in mind of hitting the weights that I wanted to hit. So I had to be heavier, heavier, heavier. It did get to a point of diminished returns though, and that diminishing returns was anything above around 310 or so. I was really at my best in the 290s, but I didn't know that until I got myself all the way up to 330. And that's the journey that you see now with me, you know, dropping weight. I weighed this morning, I weighed 216. I'm really working on committing to being under 215 every morning, and we're getting close. We're getting super close, but I'm working hard on it. And so how have I been able to have healthy knees, healthy elbows, healthy shoulders? Well, there's been times in my life where, you know, when I was a kid, my knees used to scream all the time. I loved playing basketball. And it really just got to the point where, unfortunately, I didn't have the knowledge back then, but I had to just stop playing basketball. And that was one of my favorite things to do. I really had a lot of fun with it. Had a lot of fun playing with friends and stuff, but I had like jumper's knee, and this right knee would just flare up, and I had like a tendonitis in it. But over the years, as I learned to strengthen all the muscles above and below, and as I learned about myofascial release, this is stuff that I started learning about in around 2012. I remember also learning a bunch of stuff from Kelly Starrett, and learning stuff from the Supple Leopard and from Jesse Burdick and from good friends like that, and guys like Matt Wenning, who talked a lot about general physical preparedness and bringing up your fitness level a little bit. And I was like, fitness level as a power lifter? What do you need that for? And we used to joke about it all the time. But after every single powerlifting meet that I did, I would start back over. And starting back over meant not only a shift from the barbell and not only a shift from some of the main movements, but it also meant a shift in the amount of weight I was using. And so I would therefore go with lighter weight, and I would do higher reps. You know, imagine some of that. But there was always a lot of care. You know, I learned prehab and rehab from Dave Tate. Dave Tate, in the greatest document ever written on strength training called the Periodization Bible Part 1 and Part 2. It's available at elitefts.com. It's of no charge. It's just on their website. He talked about prehab and rehab. And he had prehab and rehab work oftentimes put in the front of the workout. And I just thought to myself, this is brilliant, because he knows you're not going to do it. And so he put it first. He put it before bench. He put it before, like before you get the right to even bench, you have to do these TKEs, which is a terminal knee extension, I think it's called, or total knee extension, something like that. TKE. Great exercise. There's also another movement called the Peterson Step Up, which was later made famous by Knees Over Toes Ben Patrick. But I knew about these things from long ago. I knew about these things from Charles Poliquin. I had great mentors. I had great people that have helped me. Charles was somebody I knew on a personal level. Dave Tate was somebody I knew on a personal level. And Louis Simmons, I used to have breakfast and lunch and dinner with him almost every day for over a year. An amazing guy, an amazing mentor, but he would say, hey, your quads are kind of small. You got to get out there and you got to pull that sled backwards, Smelly. You really got to be hammering that. You're not quite built like the other guys, because at that time I was still wrestling, and he was like, you gotta build. And I wanted to be lean because I was wrestling. And I was also natural it didn't last very long at Westside Barbell, but I was natural. And he was like, man, you got to really commit to like almost like bulking and gaining some size. And I was pretty reluctant. I didn't really want to do it. But anyway, the preservation of the tendons and the ligaments and the joints was hammered into me from Louis, which is interesting because so many of his lifters crashed and burned. So many of them crashed and burned, but it's because they didn't listen to him. They got stubborn, and Louis was hard on everybody, and so it's understandable why a lot of people didn't want to listen to him. But, you know, Dave Tate's still lifting. Matt Wenning is still lifting. A lot of the guys from the gym a lot of the guys from Westside Barbell are still out there doing some pretty impressive things. And for myself, that's one of the one of the main reasons why I'm able to do what I'm able to do. It's because of the people that came before me and the people that helped me. So a lot of the people that I mentioned already, and my brothers, Chris and Mike, they all played such a huge role in this, and I feel like I owe it to them. Like, I feel like every time I play this game, every time I go to lift, every time I go to do, doesn't matter if I'm doing a grip exercise, a pull-up, a push-up, a squat, a bench, a deadlift, doesn't matter what it is, those people took their time with me, and I owe it back to them to be able to do something cool with the fucking information that they passed on to me. And that like lives within inside me. And it's part of something I can draw upon in any workout at any time. And it makes me, it fills me up with like encouragement. It fills me up with like a euphoria that's very difficult to describe. But having those people who they got too close to the sun many times. Dave Tate got wrecked a lot of times. He got screwed up a lot of times. But he would tell me, he would share with me, hey, you got to be doing, or, hey, you're doing this, you're doing that. There's exercises such as band tricep extensions. You hang a band up over the edge of a door and you do tricep pushdowns with it. Just a banded tricep extension. I'd do hundreds of those to try to preserve the elbow, to try to keep the elbow intact. And ironically, the elbow was something that ended my powerlifting career, unfortunately. For most of us, if not all of us, at some point our luck will run out with, running into some hurdles that won't allow the body to still perform the same way that it did. But now that I know some of the things I know now, I'm like, shit, that could be pushed way back further than I ever thought. I didn't realize that, I'm like, wow, this is pretty crazy. And so now with what I'm doing with running, I take my time with everything. I also try everything. Every time you guys see me, I got different shoes on. These are called Icarus. I love these shoes, nice and wide. They're great. These shoes are only good for X, Y, and Z. They're not good for A, B, C, D, E, right? So you have different shoes for different situations. I got different socks for different situations. I got different things for everything. And that's something that I learned too, was don't waste your time on buying stuff don't waste your time on like buying the wrong thing. Like, just get the right thing the first time. And this isn't about purchasing stuff necessarily, but this is just about doing stuff right the first time. Somebody says, hey man, well, I really think that you need this, this particular watch for your runs and stuff. You may not actually need that particular watch at that particular moment. However, when you can afford a watch, don't buy the cheaper watch and waste your time. Wait until you can get the better one at the right time. And I think that is, it's a key component. I'm fortunate, I have a lot of stuff. I was able to build up some really good wealth and acquire a lot of things. But that was over time. I didn't have this stuff in the beginning. I had to figure it the fuck out the same way everybody else did when I first started. And it wasn't easy to do all those things. But as I'm thinking of like exercises, there's exercises of like preservation. I think the reverse hyperextension helped me a lot when I was powerlifting. I don't use it as much anymore, but more recently I was like, I need to get back on that thing. The tricep pushdowns with the band, just because it's repeated work, getting a lot of blood flow in there. And more so than just the exercise, I did mention the TKE, I mentioned the Peterson step up as well, and just getting a lot of blood rushing in and around those joints is really important. The upstream and downstream effects of that, training the tibialis. Like I train everything. I train every body part, train the wrist, train the shins, and train all the muscles around the knee. I might not train them necessarily like a bodybuilder, but I'm training them enough to keep them fit and to keep them strong and keep them sturdy. This is an important piece right here. When I was powerlifting, I thought about powerlifting all the time. It was almost like 25 hours 8 days a week, I thought about powerlifting. When I went to get up off the couch, boom, I'd pop up like I just did a box squat. And then I might even sit back down again fast and like be like, oh, what does it feel like with my feet here or my knees here? You know, Louis says push your knees out, but what if my knees are slightly in? How does that feel? What does it feel like with a crazy wide stance? What does it feel like with my arms in different positions? And I thought about it day and night, thought about it all the time. And even when I was in the gym, I would think of different ways of like perfecting something or trying to optimize something. Now, when it comes to running, I'm thinking, I don't have a lot of experience with running. And one of the key components to being an awesome runner or be awesome at anything is having a lot of experience with it, right? And so I'm like, well, my calves aren't conditioned the same way as a runner. This isn't conditioned the same way as a runner. What if I just walked around on my toes for a day? You know, what if I started training my calves more? So as I was talking about a couple days ago, I was saying how I've been training my calves when I'm brushing my teeth. I am doing myofascial release on my calves as I'm watching TV. I have all kinds of stuff right next to where I sit in my lazy boy recliner, where I'll work on the shins, I'll work on the tibialis, I'll work on a quad. If I feel a slight anything, I start working on it right away. So that might be one of the biggest keys to the whole thing. You guys have been listening to this for a while, and I hope that some of you have stuck around. And if you stuck around long enough, then you get to hear the good stuff. Because I'm not just injecting myself with BPC and TB500. I found that those things, for me, they just didn't do anything. And then people say, oh, you took them wrong, or, okay, cool, I took them wrong, I don't know. Didn't get no noticeable effects. Nothing to report in terms of like improvement of pain, range of motion, nothing, zero. However, from myofascial release work and or going to a practitioner, I have noticed huge changes. I'll get something, in my foot, and then that night I'll be kind of working on it. And I hate working on it. I hate it. I really do. Just a couple days ago, I was like, man, because I knew how bad it was going to hurt. I had some like IT band stuff going on through here. And so I worked on my quad, and the quad wasn't that bad. I started getting up in here, and it was just horrible. It was killing me. And I'm rubbing on a really hard med ball, and I'm down on the ground, and my wife and daughter are watching TV, and I'm going, and I'm trying to like calm myself down, but I can't because it hurts so much. And then I start getting to the side where the pain actually was, all through here. And at this point, I feel like I'm going to pass out. I'm trying to hold myself up. I'm almost in tears because it hurts so bad. And so if you want to keep shit intact, you're going to have to work for it. It's not going to be easy. It's probably going to be pretty difficult and pretty annoying. So myofascial release is a huge part of it. I do have a cold plunge. I do have a sauna. I do have a hot tub. I realize and recognize maybe not everyone has those things, but you probably have access to all those things through a friend or through, there's these recovery places that you can go to nowadays. But even more so than the loungy, the amenities, those things, red light therapy, all that's great. I have a great relationship with a company called EMR Tech, and I have red light therapy all throughout my house. So if you want to check that out, that might be a good idea. But the thing that's going to make the biggest changes for you, or the things that are going to allow you to survive the best, is just going to be activity and myofascial release. The best way to acclimate towards nearly anything in life is just to go right through it. What is the thing that you struggle with? The thing that you struggle with, you're going to figure out a way to go right through it. I've always struggled with reading, right? And the more that I read, guess what? The better that I get. I still might not be able to read as well as somebody else who's just reading's always clicked with them real well. But I can improve upon it, right? And so the thing that's tough for you to do, the thing that's annoying for you to do, you have to get yourself to doing it. And what I find that most people do is they tend to sweep things under the rug. And like, this doesn't matter too much. And then they're hopeful that a pill, an operation, a doctor, or there'll be some intervention. They think somebody's coming. and they think someone's going to save them. And as Tony Robbins says, no one's coming to save you. They're just not. They're not coming to save you, and no one really cares. It's not because people are mean. It's just in the end, no one really cares about your problems. They can care only so much, right? They can care only so much about your problems. You are going to be the person that has to ultimately work on your problems in whatever ways that you possibly can. And when it comes to, people ask me questions of like, man, how are you still able to run? It's because I'm trying to do my best to not have blind spots. I have plenty of them, and I have plenty of bad habits, and I have plenty of things I could probably shift to that would still give me even better results. But in my head, I know that. And so I think about that all the time. Like, what am I missing? What's the bad habit that I really need to truly get rid of? In terms of injury and like food and nutrition and stuff, I don't know how connected they are. I know some people really swear by certain foods being certain ways and stuff. But, I do very well with my diet. And so there's nothing from the diet that I could point to that I think is a negative. And as I stated this on the Joe Rogan show, and I don't think people really agree with me on this, I don't really think food is like a net positive. I think food is just either even or negative. It's the way I kind of look at it. Food either fulfilled something that you needed because you ran out of it, or it's shitty food and you ate too much of it. That's kind of the way I've always viewed it. So I don't really think the food is going to like hurt your knee, or food's going to hurt your elbows or your joints. Although it's possible if you have shitty reactions to gluten and things like that. Maybe that's a thing for you. In the end, I built up a very resilient body that can handle a lot of things. I think just the way that the chips fell, playing football when I was young and doing pro wrestling, and then really shifting into some serious powerlifting for a while, I think that made me robust, and I just don't think that we've really seen anybody do it. No one's really ever done it before. And I'll just say it that way. I don't think there's been people who've done powerlifting, and there's been people who've done marathons and stuff, but there's not really anyone that I'm aware of who's kind of done it the way that I'm doing it. And I don't know what I'll be able to become from a sprinter's perspective, but I think that I'll be able to become pretty fucking fast. And I think that I'll be able to put up some pretty good points on the scoreboard for sprinting. And I owe a lot of that to the resilience that I built in powerlifting. I mean, we can't deny the fact that powerlifting is going to build up a lot of bone density. Powerlifting is going to build your ligaments and tendons and joints in a slightly different way than really anything else can do. And so I think I've been able to hold everything together for a lot of the reasons I just pointed out. For the guy that said he had stabbing knee pain in his knee during his, anytime he tries to run, for anybody who's just got anything like that, an ankle, a knee, or whatever, you're going to have to really just try to, just like I used to do for my powerlifting meets, just kind of start over. Forget what you used to do, or forget what anybody else does. Try to solve the problem on a level at which it exists. So your knee hurts. Okay, so how do we get the knee better? Somebody wrote to me and they said, man, my ankle's really screwed up, and they're thinking about a surgery and stuff. And I said, functional patterns. Go check out functional patterns. And people a lot of times they won't do it. Like it's too far of a drive, or there's not a guy in my town, or to me that a lot of times it just means the problem's not big enough for you to do anything about it. But I would strongly recommend that that's the way you handle things. Start over. Start from, don't just because your knee hurts when you run, don't just go out and run slow. Don't even run at all for a little bit. Walk, maybe hike, pull a sled forward, backwards, buy a sled. And I'm here to tell you that you won't do it. You're not going to do it. You're probably not going to listen to, or you're probably not going to follow a lot of the recommendations I gave you here today, because you're a fucking pussy. Cowards talk about what they'll never do. So if you have things that you've been bitching about for a long time, it's time for you to do something about it. Go see a therapist. Don't just see a doctor. Don't just go and get a surgery. You might need a surgery, but go and see someone to work on it first, and you do the work on it yourself, because the work that we do for ourselves is always going to be stronger than the work that we're thinking is going to do something for us in the shape of a pill or a doctor. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.